The most dangerous words in politics might be, "We're here to help." Because sometimes helping doesn't give someone a voice, it replaces it. This month, we're diving into everything Spivak, celebrating her birthday and her Holberg Prize, right here on Chasing Sunsets, where curiosity meets truth. And today's question is explosive. If someone speaks, but the world isn't structured to hear them, have they really spoken? That's the problem Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak forces us to confront in her landmark essay, Can the Subaltern Speak? By the end of this video, you'll see why even well-meaning activism can accidentally reproduce the very hierarchies it claims to fight. And if you care about feminism, social justice, or global politics, this critique changes how you act. Are we hearing from the women living the struggles we want to address? Or are we hearing powerful outsiders, politicians, celebrities, academics, activists from other countries, claiming to speak for them? This distinction is crucial. Spivak asks us to pause and consider the power dynamics. Who holds the microphone? Who is left standing silently in the crowd, their experiences untold and desires unacknowledged? The implications are vast. They challenge many well-intentioned movements. Even our desire to help can be tangled in power and privilege. Assuming we know what's best can silence people further. Spivak's work is a call for humility. Solidarity starts not with speaking for others, but creating space for them to speak for themselves. Not giving up on helping, changing how we help. From a model of rescue to genuine partnership and respect. Understanding the subaltern is the first step toward a more ethical, effective feminism. The world isn't just oppressors and victims. There are complex layers of power and powerlessness. A woman in a rural Indian village might be a subaltern in global debates, yet within her community, she may possess agency and influence. Quick pause. If you're into philosophy that challenges your assumptions, subscribe at Chasing Sunsets. I post one long video and 2 short deep dives every week. The impulse to help others, particularly to save women from oppression, often comes from a place of genuine compassion. We see injustice, and our hearts tell us to act. This desire is not wrong. It's part of our shared humanity. However, Spivak issues a critical warning. She argues that the narrative of white men saving brown women from brown men is a dangerous oversimplification. This framework positions the outsider, often from a wealthy Western country, as the enlightened hero. The women being saved are portrayed as passive victims without agency waiting for a rescuer. This dynamic can be more harmful than helpful. The core problem: this savior mentality often reinforces the very power structures it claims to oppose. It sets up a hierarchy. The helper is knowledgeable and powerful. The helped are seen as ignorant and weak. This strips dignity and the ability to solve problems. When outsiders swoop in with ready-made solutions, they often fail to understand the local context, the culture, the true desires of the community. They impose their own values and beliefs, believing they know what's best. Speaking for others, deciding their needs, effectively erases the voices they intend to empower. Think about it. "I am here to save you" implies you cannot save yourself. That message can be deeply disempowering. It creates a cycle of dependency where communities rely on outside help instead of building local leadership. Focus shifts from local strength to celebrating the outsider. Stories become about foreign heroism, not local resilience and brilliance. Women become props in someone else's story. This is the double-edged sword of saving. One side, real material aid that alleviates suffering. Other side, Spivak's epistemic violence, silencing someone's knowledge and experience, imposing one way of knowing and dismissing others. This isn't a call to never help. It means we must be careful how we help. Question our motives and positions of power. Spivak's warning calls for thoughtful, respectful, humble engagement. Engagement that centers local voices and leadership. To make this idea clearer, let's look at 2 examples, historical and contemporary. During British colonial rule in India, a campaign was launched to abolish sati. where a widow would immolate herself on her husband's funeral pyre. On the surface, this seems like a noble cause. The British framed it as a mission to save Indian women from a barbaric tradition. They presented themselves as moral saviors. Spivak and other scholars say the narrative is too simple. The British used sati to justify colonial rule, portraying Indian culture as backward and needing Western civilizing. The voices of Indian women were absent. No one asked about their beliefs, motivations, or feelings. The debate was between British men and Indian elite men. The woman on the pyre was not a subject. She was an object and a symbol for a colonial agenda. Abolition was positive, but the process reinforced colonial power and silenced those it claimed to save. It set a precedent of outsiders deciding what's best without consultation. Now consider a modern example. Imagine an international NGO combating child marriage in rural Southeast Asia. They arrive with a campaign to build residential schools, sending girls to live and study far from family. Leaders believe separation is the only protection. They launch a glossy campaign with sad-eyed girls. Save a girl, educate her. Donations pour in from well-meaning people worldwide, but on the ground it's more complicated. Many families are reluctant to send daughters away. They rely on children for farming and caring for younger siblings. They fear loss of cultural identity and family connection. Local women's groups suggest alternatives, fund small local schools, or provide microloans to mothers. The NGO dismisses these ideas and remains committed to their model. As a result, residential schools are half empty and the community feels alienated. The help didn't match the need because nobody stopped to listen. If the savior model is so flawed, what is the alternative? Does this mean we should stand by? Absolutely not. Spivak's critique leads to a smarter, more respectful, more effective solidarity. The better path begins with a radical mindset shift, from rescuer to ally. The first and most important step is to listen. Actively seek out the voices of the subaltern and listen without judgment or preconceived notions. This listening must be deep and patient. Ask open-ended questions like, what do you need? What would a good solution look like for you and your community? Set aside assumptions and be willing to learn. People are the experts of their own lives. They know hidden risks and unique opportunities better than any outsider. True help honors that expertise and lets it guide action. Second, actively support local leaders and organizations. In nearly every community, people are already creating change from within. Often women's groups, community organizers, and local activists have the trust of the people and deep context. Channel resources directly to grassroots efforts. Provide funding, share skills, offer technical support, but keep local leaders in control. Empower, don't co-opt. Be comfortable in a supporting role. Real change grows from the ground up. As we draw this discussion to a close, we return to Spivak's foundational question. Can the subaltern speak? Her answer is complex. Often, we are not configured to hear. Systems of power, the language we use, and the stories we tell distort or co-opt their voices. They may be speaking, even shouting, but the world isn't listening. That places responsibility on those with privilege and platforms. Before we speak, am I amplifying an unheard voice or speaking over it? Before we act, does this empower leadership or foster dependency? This work takes patience, humility, and the willingness to be a student. Justice grows when people have power and platforms to speak in their own voice, and when the world finally learns how to listen. Before you help someone, ask, am I amplifying a voice, or am I enjoying being the hero? Justice doesn't begin with speaking, it begins with listening. Subscribe at Chasing Sunsets 49. Like, comment, and share. New long video and 2 sharp shorts every week. Thanks for watching. Take care and bye.